When we haven't been talking about statins and cholesterol, we've been talking about our new poll done voters in Ohio, where Donald Trump has a 48 to 43% lead over Hillary Clinton in the Bloomberg Politics poll. Down ballot, the survey also shows that Republican Senator Rob Portman is way out ahead of his Democratic challenger, the former Governor Ted Strickland, 53 to 36%. With us now, the person who did the poll for us, Ann Selzer, joining us as usual from Des Moines, Iowa. Ann, let's talk about, implicit in this is who's going to vote in Ohio. This sample shows an electorate that looks more like 2004 when George Bush famously beat John Kerry in Ohio, rather than President Obama's 2 wins. Talk about what that makeup is and why we think that might be what the electorate looks like.
Well, the reason we think that's what the electorate looks like is that's what our data are telling us. You know, people read into our polls that we must be deciding what we want that split to be of Republican, Democrat, and Independent. And in fact, our method says we know that party ID is a floating variable. It's a mushy variable. It's not a fixed variable. So we let our respondents tell us if they pass our likely voter screen, and a higher proportion of Republicans pass through that screen than Democrats, then we're going to trust that that's indicative of what's happening
so Ann,
in the state.
When we say it looks more like 2004, it's more Republican, but what else?
It's more Republican than Democrat, but it's more Republican than we saw in 2008 or 2012. And a lot of people are saying, well, gosh, 2008, that's 8 years ago. Things should look pretty much the same. But as you know very well, 2008 changed the way we understand the way elections can be won. And so I wanted to go back, once we saw what our data were showing us, to see what happened before that.
Right.
And we uncovered that it looks like 2004, but there's a misperception that we created our poll to look like 2004, and not the case.
Hey, Ann, great to talk to you again. It's Donnie. I want to talk about the Kasich factor in Ohio, but then broaden out a little bit. I think he's got a 58, 59% approval rating. One could say it's clearly the endorsement does not matter that much. Is it fair to say, as you go state by state, because each of these candidates has 100% awareness level, are so polarizing, that the endorsement factor is almost a non-issue everywhere?
Well, I think there is a role that John Kasich may be playing in Ohio, and that is he is virtually as popular with Democrats as he is with Republicans. And that's almost unheard of in this age of polarization where everybody wants to hate everybody from the other party. So the fact that he scores so well in Ohio, broadly across the board, to me, has kind of created an atmosphere where it's okay to like Republicans in Ohio. And I can't say that that would have been true for the past 2 elections before he really came to prominence, and certainly national prominence. So I think there's a Kasich effect. His distance from Trump doesn't seem to be hurting Trump at all.
And one number caught my eye in the poll. I want to know how unusual it is. Union households in Ohio, Clinton wins within the margin of error, 48 to 45% for Trump. Do Republicans normally do that well with union households in Ohio and generally?
Normally, union households are a stronghold for Democrats, although in recent elections that's been narrowing a bit. It is a group that Hillary Clinton wins with, so she overcomes the 5-point deficit, plus she gets 3 points more there. I think it's offset by a great concern in Ohio with trade. We asked a question about NAFTA and whether it has done more for Ohio in terms of more exports, therefore more jobs, or more to hurt Ohio by losing companies and losing jobs. A majority of people say that, in fact, it's hurt Ohio, and that includes a plurality of Democrats. So jobs being by far the most important issue, there's an economic basis that suggests that Trump's approach is winning.
But I'll say, Ann, of the 4 candidates we've talked about, the 2 presidential candidates and the 2 Senate candidates, the one who's been the most pro-trade in this race is Rob Portman, and he's winning overwhelmingly. So he's defying that sentiment, which reflected in that NAFTA question in the state against free trade.
That may well be. Portman is doing well, has really sort of blown out the race, at least as it stands today. We know that he gets 20% of Hillary Clinton supporters, so there's some cross-voting going on there with people who like his stance.
And another interesting little sidebar, Hillary, with her young voters, when you start to put the 3rd and 4th party candidates in, loses a lot more of that youth to that candidate. Very interesting.
That's right. When we do a two-way test, and those are the numbers that we've shown you before, in a four-way test, her number is decreased because 22% of people under age 35 say they're supporting Gary Johnson, which is a huge number. And for her to lose that many to that candidate, I mean, that's a signal that her constituency that she relies on, that young group of voters, they're not very solid.
And we all know not to overreact to any single poll, but are we right to look at this result and say it's a big deal that Trump up by 5 in Ohio?
Well, at the time that this poll was released this morning, there wasn't another poll that showed him up by that many points. So that's always a moment where you double check all the protocols as we go through the data yesterday morning to make sure that there's nothing that's bothering us. This afternoon, CNN released a poll showing Trump up by 5 in Ohio. So I don't know. Do we exhale?
Yep.
Who knows? Both polls could be wrong, of course, but there seems to be a trend.
Based on my talks with the campaigns, I don't think it's wrong. Ann, great job as always. Thank you. As she said, CNN also has Trump up by 5 in Ohio. They also have Trump up by 3 in Florida amongst likely voters. Ann Selzer in Des Moines, thank you very much.